Well, hi, good morning, and thanks so much for coming and joining me here in my shop on October 25th, where the weather continues to be surprisingly good here. How lucky am I? Very lucky. Very lucky. And what's going on with this radio? Hey, wait a minute, didn't I already work on this? So this nice little Grundig radio had a broken dial string, and I repaired the dial string. And I gave the radio a quick test, and it seemed okay to me. And the quick test, and I set it aside, carry on with some other stuff. The owner of this radio is coming today to pick it up, and yesterday I picked it up myself and played it, and this thing needs some more attention. So let's play this radio a bit. Okay, so we're going to play the medium wave band. Just turn this down. That's actually working pretty good in my shop here. It's a weather report. I have to listen. That's too far away. So there we are. Nothing wrong. What's the problem? Let's put it on FM here. I think you're starting to get the idea.
But when I speak to people, Arizona cases, and I hear stories.
This radio has a switch on the back of it. So how can it be we get this? Doesn't matter really what you touch on this radio, this is what you get. Static. Let's go back to AM again. Nothing happening. So my diagnosis at this point is there's a bad connection in the radio affecting only FM. That's kind of obvious. And I suspect it has to do with the switch back here. There's some kind of antenna switch, very cheaply made. Got a little bit of dirt in this control here. Got a little bit of dirt in the switch here, I think. So, dirt, bad contacts. I think it's bad contacts all around. Maybe even bad contacts in the antenna situation here. Seemed to me, although I didn't do it today, well, we can do it right now actually. Let's try it. I can just tune in something. Yeah, if. Well, what I was going to say was it seemed as if maybe there's a bad connection in the antenna too. So bad connections all around, dirt, all that kind of stuff, only affecting the FM side of things. Okay, so I have to remember now how I took all this apart. Battery case, little tiny screws, 2 little tiny screws. Well, there's not many options here. Let's start with these little tiny screws back here. I really don't remember how I took this apart. When this radio first came, of course, the string was broken and it was a dead dog. So just getting the string going brought the radio back to life, back to useful life, I guess you could say. And I overlooked the problem with the FM side of things. Yikes, that's not what I want to do. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Out. So I'm imagining all this is going to involve is just some spraying of cleaner in the right spots. Just let all that stuff come out there. Don't remember. Looks like there's all there it comes. There we go. Okay. Gee, when I worked on this, I really just focused on the string so much. Looking at it, I'm not even familiar with it. It doesn't look, to me, it's as if I've never looked inside this guy before. Okay. So first thing would be the volume control here. I need to put the batteries back in and make this guy operate or run them from a power supply. Let's run it from a power supply. So it's 4 batteries, 6 volts, hooked up to nothing, 6 volts. Working on my outdoor Christmas lights last night, making them work. That's 6 volts coming out. Look what I've done here. Good thing I tend to double check stuff. I guess I've gotten to know myself. If there's a way to get it wrong, I tend to find it. Okay. Ooh. What's all that? Can't be any doubt there's dirt in there. The hum will be coming from the power supply. I guess it's just not as good as I might want. Kind of surprising. It's a Hewlett-Packard DC supply. It needs a little attention, I guess. Okay, now what I want to do is I hit the business area here. Is that it already? It's amazing, eh?
An hour and a half session. Okay, that's an hour and a half, so we only need an extra half an hour.
Good. Was that the entire problem? It would appear to be the case. That was the entire problem. Really? I'm looking for consistent operation when I return it to FM, that it's exactly the same every time. Sure seems to be. That was it. The fact is, I didn't even have to take this out. I could have sprayed the stuff down the edge here, but I wouldn't know which edge to spray it on. I guess you could spray it in both. That's too easy. That's just too easy. Now what about that switch that's on the back of the radio? Ooh, what's going on there? It's my hand touching stuff. Let's give that a little bit of... Actually, I'm not sure what this switch is. It's not labeled. Put up the FM antenna, it doesn't seem to make any difference to this radio. Is it because of the switch here? I don't know. It just doesn't give me the good feelings here. I have a feeling the antenna is disconnected. What was that? That was... So the antenna, I'm going to get the close-up camera and take a look at the antenna connection down there. Okay, so I've been poking around in here trying to find a good camera angle to look inside, and while I was doing that I discovered the problem. So again, we're listening to the FM radio. Touching the antenna makes no difference. It will if I push it a little bit because there's something else going on, but the antenna itself, there's an external antenna input here. That's just a coincidence what you just heard there. And if I touch the terminal, it doesn't do anything. Now you'd expect this to do a lot. The radio would come to life, or it would cause some change. No change whatsoever. So I'm thinking, well, something is not right with how the antenna connects to the radio. And while I was looking around, let's just change to this other camera here. I'll show you what I found. And this is something that I'm sure occurred while I was working on the radio. Well, I can't be sure, but chances are very good. Let's see if I can get this on the camera now. Okay, see those green wires? There's one in the kind of the upper center of the screen, and there's one going off to the left. Let me just move the one from the left. It's not hooked up to anything. Now that almost certainly is the antenna lead. Where's it going here? Well, it appears to be going down into the board there, or somewhere. Where? It's going somewhere. I'm not going to chase it down. The name of the game is, where does this end go? Luckily, there's a lot of wire here to lift it right up. Great. Okay, that's a little bit unexpected, but I did notice yesterday when I was playing the radio that touching the antenna just didn't do anything. In the meantime, there's these other intermittent contact issues that are complicating the whole thing and making it very difficult to sort out what's really going on here. But I did notice it. We hear a little difference there, but that's what about touching the end of this? This doesn't help. Oh. It didn't seem to make it any better. Notice another funny thing too, and that is if I adjust the voltage coming into this radio up and down a bit, the quality of its operation changes in a way I wouldn't expect. You know, it's a green wire. It's the right length to come to here. It's got to be connected to this now. I still don't get much of a response. There's something more going on here. Well, in terms of places to solder it, so the green wire that's here on the antenna terminal, on the antenna connector terminal, goes down and it connects. Looks like it's connecting to this. You might think that would mean the entire antenna, this and the antenna itself, are dependent on this wire conveying the signal up into the radio, and it's not there. So that makes quite a difference there. Well, I'm going to solder it on here because it's an easy thing to do. And undo. Solder it on and we'll tune around the radio and see if something's happened here. Oop. Am I cutting this off? Am I getting the insulation? It's a very light wire. Sometimes this thing just cuts them. Lots of wire now. I'm just going to cut the power off while I do this. A lot of soldering irons. The tip is grounded. And it's not necessarily a good thing to be working with it on something that's on. I've never actually checked to see if the tip of mine is grounded, but I'd be surprised if it isn't. Okay, what do we got now for a radio? Power on. Still mysterious here.
Just in terms of how you put this thing out. And it gradually came out because, you know, I'd be in the studio and then I'd play the songs with the, you know, the musicians, and that was the first.
Well, that's working a lot better.
vulnerability. And then when the album came out, people were gonna connect and that kind of thing. And then now I'm doing a tour playing live, and it's really quite beautiful because people are now connecting and say the songs connect in a way that comedy music doesn't connect to people.
Yeah.
I mean, Concourse has a great. I love the fact that a lot of people, you know, I get a lot of lovely messages and people saying they've got them through difficult times and brings joy to their family. A lot of people watched it with their kids and grew up with it, watching it.
So the treble in the signal is going up and down, or the sound rather is going up and down, and that often indicates the strength of the FM signal. Have you ever noticed when you're driving in your car and you're driving away from the FM station and you're getting out towards the fringe, that the high treble begins to disappear in the radio you're listening to? So I think that's what that indicates. The better treble is a stronger signal. Worse, better. At least there's an effect now from moving the antenna a bit.
Let's try. We started in about 20. In our 20s, yeah. In college? Yeah, university.
Scared the heck out of myself. I bet you jumped too, eh?
The Calgary Fringe, and then the Vancouver Fringe, and
That's a power situation, is it? Sounds like it.
Central, I can't remember this looking.
Oh, I haven't cleaned these buttons yet. Hey, hold on. Okay, we gotta clean these push buttons. That's probably where the problem is. Let me turn the power off so we're not listening to all this noise. I'm gonna take this off of here to get it out of the way. Now, so these push buttons, especially the FM one, did I try cleaning these before? I didn't hear an answer. I need to tip this up. I don't know. I need to get this fluid in there. No, can't see. Let's take a close look at the push button switch arrangement here. See if we can spot a place that we can get some cleaning fluid in there. So I'm looking for gaps around these terminals. There's no gaps. There's kind of a hole at the end. I guess that's where the push button mechanics is. Well, maybe not. Nothing's moving there. So I'm pushing the button of the switch you're looking at. I would have thought that little lever there at the top of the screen would go back and forth. Moved a little bit there. That'll move. That's the on-off switch. Okay, back to trying to find a place to... Oh, so there's a hole right there in this one. There's a nice... Oh, there's a hole in both of them. Now, can we see something moving? Yeah. Okay, so if I throw some cleaner through that hole, there's a good chance it's going to work its way into the contacts. Is there another hole? Yeah, another hole here. Good. 2 holes. That's great. Place to spray this stuff in. As we saw before, wow, it doesn't take much of this. I'm using this rather expensive deoxit. Now for years and years I just used WD-40 on stuff like this. And I still believe WD-40 is quite fine. You don't have to go out and buy this expensive stuff. But this stuff is supposedly made specifically for doing this. Okay, put lots in there. Let's do the next one too. The other ones didn't seem to have any problem. And I could have been fooled. It could be the volume control was really acting up. Very, very hard to track these kinds of problems down. Okay. We'll start with AM. We'll turn the volume down. Okay, we'll put the power back on. So the 4 batteries generate 6 volts, just maybe a touch over 6 volts when they're brand new. But here on the power input from using a power supply, it says 7.5 volts. I'm running it at around 6 on here. Here we go. Okay, so we're on AM. Very good. Okay, and we'll go FM. Tendency down. It just doesn't seem right, eh? You think I'd touch that antenna and it would just come right to life. Let me use a piece of wire here. You just expect to hear that. I would. Yet the radio's receiving. Either it's very sensitive and it's able to pick it up from just wiring, or wouldn't I be able to find that wire? Put my finger near the right thing. What I'm touching here is a large capacitor, actually. Just touching the body of it. Get close to that resistor there. There's a couple of adjustments here. It's the kind of thing that might lose contact. Just touching it should be enough to reveal that case. Let me get a stick. It's just a wooden. This is actually skewers, you know, for cooking. They are great. They are really handy. This is one of the adjustments here. I'm not adjusting it, just applying a little bit of pressure. Nothing happening. Back here, it's in the wrong spot, I think. Okay, we don't know what those are, but they are really black. Well, it may be an unsolvable problem in that it could be a faulty transistor right in the front end, and I have can sort that kind of thing out. See, it just doesn't make any difference. Antenna out and antenna in. Wasn't this working a lot better a minute ago? Strong signal works good. Let's turn it off a little bit. There's just no reason to think this antenna is working. Yet, the radio works.
It's called Songs with... So, like, yeah, Brett McKenzie won an Oscar for his work and a Grammy for his work.
That's pretty good reception.
Also won an Oscar from New Zealand for his work. So, like, what's going on with New Zealand and the New Zealand sense of humor, sort of like going out of New Zealand and taking over the world? Brett McKenzie has some thoughts coming up after this on Keep.
Oh, that's interesting. If I short this out.
From CBC Toronto, a mix of sun and cloud, 12 degrees with a high of 18 today. John Tory says he's determined to create more housing in his third term.
Yesterday was the municipal election day here in Ontario. In Ontario, there's about 300 municipalities. Some of them very large, like the city of Toronto. Others medium, like where I live. And many, many, many small communities, 1,000 people or so, or even less. And so a lot of mayors got elected yesterday, and town councillors, including here where I live in Orillia. So that's what they're talking about. There we go. Of course, in Canada we use vote counting, vote tabulation machines, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come from the same company you hear Americans complaining about. I can't think of the name of it now, but it doesn't matter. It's a Canadian company. It's located in Toronto. It produces vote counting machines. So in this case, when my wife and I went to vote, fill out we're handed a ballot, and there's bubbles. We're handed a black marker, and we just color in the right bubbles, right? And then we hand the sheet in a protected folder, so the person we're handing it to can't see how we voted, and then they feed the voting sheet into the reader. It's probably done very similar in many, many countries. And you can see the page slide into the reader, and then the reader reads where we marked it, and then it gives a thumbs up. It's okay, in the sense that the markings made sense, and there wasn't something obviously wrong with how the ballot was filled out. For instance, we bubbled in too many. If we bubble in too many, it's going to reject the vote, and we're going to be asked to go and vote again, basically, is what we'll be asked to do. So when the machine is done with that particular piece of paper, it goes right into the machine. And later, the votes are counted. I'm pretty sure they're all counted by hand. And then that's compared to the machine count, and that becomes the official vote in the end, I believe. So the machine gives us instant count. So as soon as the polls close, within minutes, we know what's happened. And then later, the paper votes, there's a paper ballot for everybody, is counted up, and those paper ballots exist somewhere, should they need to be further audited or something like that. And we have elections like anywhere, where sometimes they're really close, within just a couple of votes, or 10 or 20 votes. And in those cases, careful hand recounting is done to prove the result. Probably exactly the same thing is done in every country in the world, at every level, or something very, very similar like that is done. The point I'm trying to make is we use the same voting machines. They're just readers, they're just counters. And the final count is dependent upon the actual paper ballots being counted. Something like that goes on here. Okay. And hey, I'll say one more thing. The way we arrange our voting districts, we don't call them districts here in Canada, we call them ridings, R-I-D-I-N-G. As if you're riding a horse. I don't really know exactly why we call them ridings, but it probably goes back in history to when politicians rode horses, and they had to ride around, and so that was a riding. I don't know. I'm making that part up. We use a commission that periodically, every 4 or 5 years, maybe after the census is taken, the commission, it's under a national law, the commission is organized and it reviews the voting writings to make sure they're all around 100,000 people, something like that. The result of that is some very, very large ridings here in Ontario where the population is very, very thin up north. So very, very large areas become one riding. And if you go to a dense area such as Toronto, there are many, many ridings. And no one's riding a horse around anymore in Toronto, but they're still called ridings. And so the commission decides how to block these out. Occasionally it may make a fairly dramatic change and split the ridings and do other things, all to maintain roughly 100,000 voters in a riding. And all this is done by disinterested commissioners, or a commission of disinterested people, not politicians. Not politicians. That's how it's done. It's done essentially for the federal level, and then the provinces normally just follow right along. They go, okay, you've got those ridings set up, we'll just follow the same pattern. Municipal elections are a little different because a riding would cover a huge area, and municipalities have wards, which are much smaller. So here in my little city of 35,000 or so, I think there's, well, I don't know how many wards there are here. I'm in Ward 4, probably 6 wards or something like that. So when you go to vote in Canada, in all levels, this has been my experience. In every election, I voted in virtually every election since I've been a voting age. The lineup lasts, well, often there's no lineup at all. You walk in, you go right over, you're handed your ballot after they certify who you are, you provide a little bit of evidence as to who you are, and the whole thing just, and you're out. And I've never ever been in a lineup to vote that was longer than 3 or 4 minutes. And that would just be because at that moment a little rush of people showed up at the polling station. So that's how that would happen. So we don't have long lines here. At least I've never experienced that ever in any election at all. So there's no reason to have a line, is there? I mean, just have more polling stations. Why would you run an election where people line up, around the block? I'm thinking of a certain country where that happens. Okay, sorry about that, but that's kind of the news here, and I think you might be, if you're from another country, you might be a little interested in how things are done here. And far be it from me to really explain it. But yeah, it's my video and you're watching it, so there you got my explanation for this stuff. Now, what to do about this radio? Let's get back to this.
Stand up.
Oh yeah,
and their
yeah.
songs are made more devastating.
Contrast. Yeah, I was kind of the simple songwriter in New Zealand.
Button.
It was really beautiful songwriter.
Button seems good.
Kind of master
Yeah.
between the songs. So funny. And I was watching
Okay, so I was really banging it there to get that. Don't know what it was. I think we're done. I think we're done here. I'm going to throw it back together and make doubly sure. And in the meantime, the owner who was coming here today is not coming today. They're going to come a few days from now. So I've got lots of time anyway. Okay, I'll get it back together and we'll check it out.
It's been really fun.
And award-winning safety, forget what the copycat.
Hey.
Don't fall for fake
What? How can this happen?
Subaru dealer. Subaru? Visit us at 385 West Street South or Subaru.com. And prosper. Boldly go where... you know the... Regional lowering surgical solutions like custom orthotics, shock tape, and laser therapy. Our fasciitis. Afternoon, the high 7 degrees for Thursday.
What are you doing here, radio? Let's go to, is anything happening over here?
Identifies as first generation. And after taking 100 more to stages across Canada, they're kicking off the last 2 days of shows at the Arts Court Theatre in Ottawa.
It's making a difference now.
The Justine and Laurie both join me now live. Everybody, how's it going? Good. How are you? So good. Lovely to have you here. Good morning. Justine, let me start with you. Talk to me about how this piece got started. Was there a spark that got this thing started?
Yeah, absolutely. Laurie and I met in Vancouver in 2013 at this gathering for Canadian choreographers called 8 Days, which is the brainchild of choreographers Amy Henderson.
What happened there? Good question.
We were dabbled in coming through the tree.
It's almost like it shuts off every time it picks up a strong station. That sounds crazy.
This is the circle.
Twisting it. Got a mind of its own. Well, I don't think we're successful yet. There's a hunch. And I extend the antenna, the radio tuning is going to shift. Okay, so tuned about as good as I can get it there. Barrie is next city over. Bigger, much bigger city, 140,000 people. Definitely got antenna action now.
Tell myself when I was younger, I'd say
Did she say she knows Victoria's Secret? Is that what she just said? Something not right in there still. Shoot. Previously, I resoldered these connections. I'm thinking I'd solved things. Sounds like there's still something here. But that's not quite what I'm after. So I'm pushing on this, I'm flexing the whole board. This is the challenge here with this. Look at that. That's almost stopped now. So what's coming to mind here is a cold solder joint or cracked trace on the board somewhere, and flexing it here. Pick up any stations here. Well, you know, it could be the same way that this had solder problems because of the bulk of all this in this little radio. And as you carry the radio around, this thing is moving, like it has momentum or weight to it. Well, this is the same. This is even worse. This has even more momentum, more weight to it. So it could be solder problems with the frame of the capacitor here. I think I turned it right down, didn't I? Hard to believe. Could be these, easily. Could be all kinds of stuff. I think we have to take the whole radio out of the cabinet and explore it some more. Yikes, I was going to work on a nice big tape deck today, but here I am working on a little transistor radio. Well, I'm going to check and see how long I've been doing this here. Okay. Well, I'm out of time today, so that's as far as I've gotten. I'm going to have to take this right out and look for cold solder joints, cracks, do a lot more resoldering, and see if we can't nail down what it is that's happening here. So, okay, that's it from me today. Thanks a lot for watching. Sorry it's not more exciting, but these kinds of problems are very, very hard to track down. Very hard. See you tomorrow.